What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be showing you guys my top 3 plugins for mixing beats. Now, last year during the summer, I actually did a video where I showed you guys what my top 3 production VSTs were, and I probably should update that video. But in the meantime, today, I'm going to show you guys what my top 3 plugins are for mixing beats. Quick disclaimer, these plugins are third party, so they do cost a little bit of money. I will be making more of an effort to make more videos in regards to using things that come stock with Studio One, but for today, just wanted to let you guys know they do cost a little bit of money. They are third party. And then second, these are my favorite plugins at the moment. My preferences might change, you know, next week, next month, a couple months from now, but at this moment in time, these are my top 3 plugins that I use on an everyday basis when I'm mixing my beats. Now, jumping into Studio One real quick, this is actually a session of a beat that I made, I want to say last August. Now, every plugin that I show you guys today will have satisfied my 3 criteria for a great plugin, and those being, it has to be appealing, it has to have a nice user interface, a nice GUI, it has to be easy to use, and then of course, it has to be a quality plugin. The effect that it's trying to create, it has to be a good one. Now, the first plugin on the list is Echoboy from a company called SoundToys. You guys have heard me talk about them before because I am a huge fan of their products. This one here comes in their SoundToys 5 bundle, which I definitely recommend. However, if you want to purchase it by itself, you definitely can. But if you've never heard of Echoboy, essentially it is a delay plugin. And if we take a look at it, right off the bat, it checks off my first criteria, which is a nice user interface. So right off the bat, it's really easy on the eyes. Now, as far as parameters go, if you take a look at the top, we have a little drop-down menu, and this has a bunch of different presets for really anything from like drums to guitars to basses to vocals, you name it, it's probably in there. For me, however, when I'm using effects like this, maybe like delay or reverb, I usually use them because I have a specific effect that I have in mind that I want to create. So I really don't use the presets that often. Sometimes I do, but for the most part, I really use these knobs here. If you take a look in the dead center, we have an echo time knob, and this is probably the most important one because this one will dictate what the value of the delay will be as far as the note goes. If you want it to be a 32nd, a 64th, an 8th, a 4th note, this will be the knob that you use to set that in. So if I turn this all the way to the left, we have a 64th note, then 32nd, 16th, 8th, and so on and so on. Now at the bottom, we do have some buttons. You can leave this as just a regular delay 8th note, or you can make it into a dot, you can make it into a triplet. You can also fine tune this a little bit more if you hit the time button, because as opposed to dealing with note values, now you're dealing with time, you're dealing with milliseconds. So you can fine tune this a little bit more and really to your liking. Now to the right, we have the feedback knob, and this will essentially tell the plugin for how long you want that delay to last. So the feedback, if you want a lot of it or a little bit of it, it's really easy to dial in the amount that you want and get it just right. Now on the left, we have the mix knob, and so far you've set the note for the delay, you've set how much feedback, how long you want the delay to be, and this knob here will actually tell the software how much of it you want it to be applied to your actual sound. So if you want it to be minimal, you bring it down to dry, and if you want more of it, you bring it up to wet. But that's really it. It's super simple to use. Now, in essence, these are the 3 parameters, 3 knobs that I use the most when I'm using this plugin. However, you also have some low cut filters, high cut filters. You have the tempo section here in the middle. Now, if you have this flipped on to MIDI, it will always be synchronized to the tempo of your current session. Now, at the bottom, you have a groove knob and a feel knob, and the groove knob essentially allows you to either create more of a swing style delay or more of a shuffle-esque delay. The feel knob will make it either feel more rushed or more dragged. It's really up to whatever you want to create. Moving on down, we have the last knob in this section, which will essentially tell the software what kind of delay you want. Whether that be a single delay, dual delay, ping pong, or rhythmic echo, this is where you're going to set that parameter. Last but not least, on the right, we have a couple more knobs. You have a saturation knob, input, output, and of course the style. Now I really don't mess with this too much. I kind of just always keep it on studio tape, although you can always go down and select different things. As I said, really easy to use, but for the most part, I stick to this section here, the mix, echo, and feedback, and then occasionally I'll go in here and I'll mess around with the type of delay that I want depending on the effect that I'm trying to create. Next up on the list, we have another plugin from SoundToys. This one is called Decapitator. Now this one right here is one of my secret sauce plugins. I use it on drums a lot to kind of beef them up, and I'm gonna make a separate video on how to make your drums hit harder, but essentially what this plugin does, it adds harmonic content, saturation, and distortion to your sound. Now, the reason you might want a plugin like this is because as humans, whenever we hear an audio frequency, a signal, a sound, it might sound good, but it always sounds better whenever you add a little bit of harmonic content, a little bit of harmonies, saturation, and distortion, and this is exactly what this plugin does. Essentially, all the things that I just mentioned, harmonic content, saturation, distortion, they're all very prominent in analog hardware, so this kind of gives it more of that feeling. And what I found when I use it on like a drums bus or like a kick drum, or you know, maybe like a bass, it helps kind of give it that grit and cut through the mix. So I love using this plugin for that. Now, if you take a look at the plugin, we do have up top again those presets that were present in the Echoboy, but if you look at the bottom, we have a drive knob, a punish button, a bit of a VU meter to show you how much of that effect you're applying. You have a low cut knob, a tone knob, high cut knob, output, and mix knob. And at the bottom, we do have a bit of a style button selection, although I'll be honest, I don't know what they do. I'm always on A, and I probably should experiment a little bit more, but for the most part, I'm always here. Now, as far as ease of use goes, this is probably a lot simpler than the Echoboy, because essentially, this here is your main knob. The drive knob is the one that you're going to use to set how much of that saturation, harmonic content, and distortion you want to apply to your signal. At the bottom, again, you do have those low cut and high cut knobs to help you get a little bit more surgical with your delay. Down in the center, we have the tone knob, and this is the one that I use probably the most next to the drive knob here. And this will allow you to either set how bright of a tone or how dark of a tone you want the effect to be. And on the far right, of course, we have that mix knob, which is present now in a lot of plugins, but essentially, again, this allows you to set how much of this effect you want applied onto your signal. Now, last on the list, we have a reverb. This one here is called Valhalla Room, and it's from a company called DSP. Now, this here is an algorithmic reverb. Essentially, what that means is that the effect, the reverb effect, was created using software as opposed to recording real-life acoustic vibrations and echoes. Now, taking a look at the plugin, we have some sliders and some knobs. Over to the left, we have the mix knob, and this is probably the most important because, again, it just dictates how much of the effect you want. Now, the depth slider to me is probably the second most important because this is where you tell the software how far away you want it to sound from the source. So if you want it to sound really far away, you go up to 100 or somewhere in between, and if you want it to sound really close, then you bring it back down. Now, over to the right, we do have some knobs which allow you to get a little bit more surgical with your reverb, although I'll be honest, I really don't use these that much. Now, down at the bottom, we do have that preset drop-down menu which allows you to select different kind of presets for whatever effect you have in mind. Finally, over to the left, we have the third parameter that I use the most, and that is the reverb mode drop-down menu. If you take a look, if I click on it, we have large room, medium room, bright room. So this allows you to select what kind of reverb you want. Usually I stick with large room, or maybe something like a large chamber if you really want that big sound, but this is where you pick that. So that is it, guys. Those are my top 3 plugins at the moment that I use every day to mix my beats. We had Echoboy and Decapitator from Sound Toys, and then Valhalla Room from DSP. Now, again, these might change in the future. I might get new ones, and I'll definitely update you guys, but for the time being, this is what I'm currently using every day. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, guys. Like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you're not already, but I will see you guys on the next one.